627 here. Woohoo! I hope you're ready because this is Pokemon Rewind, the podcast where we go through episodes of the Pokemon anime through the random story arcs. We are currently in the Orange Island story arc, and this month is a special month because this month is Pokepals month. All month I've had all my Pokepals come and join me on the podcast. And again, I have the privilege of Danny, the ultrasonic player. Say hello to the people, Danny.
Yo, what's happening, Arcaders? How you guys doing out there?
Alrighty. Are you excited about this next episode?
I am pumped and ready.
Alright.
I'm really enthused about this.
Great. I'm glad to hear it. I am really excited about this episode myself. It's an episode I do remember actually back in the day. I actually remember watching this back in the day, which, by the way, was a Thursday. Just so you know, back in the day it was a Thursday. I watched this on a Thursday. Yeah. Yeah. So, before we get into it, though, I want to remind all of you out there that we are watching episodes of the Pokemon anime through the random story arcs, like I said previously. We're going through the Orange Islands currently. Now, we are about to watch the episode entitled In the Pink. If you have not watched this episode yet, we caution you to please watch the episode first before you actually listen to this podcast, so that way you get the most out of it, okay? Because we're going to be spoiling a whole lot of stuff. This has been out for a long time, so you had a long time to do it. Now, if you're not exactly sure where to find these, obviously you can get them on DVD. You can also get them on Netflix, and you can also get it through the free Pokemon app as well. Have you tried out that free Pokemon app? You get free Pokemon episodes every day. Have you tried that Pokemon app?
I actually have not. I've just actually been going back and just using the good old YouTube.
All right.
But luckily though, it's worked. You know, I get a chance to watch the full episode. But I have heard of the app, so we'll see what happens. But so far I'm pretty comfortable with using YouTube.
Great.
Of course, that might change, later on, but we'll see what happens.
All right. So, let's first get into the fun facts for this episode. This episode is the 88th episode of the Pokemon anime and was broadcast in America on February 12th, 2000. 2000. Unfortunately, there really wasn't too many fun facts about this episode. This, unfortunately, was very bare of fun facts. So, as I usually do, I go over Pokemon that are highlighted in this episode. So, there are two Pokemon that are actually highlighted in this episode, and we're going to go over them real quick. Let's start off with the first Pokemon that we meet, and that is, of course, Rhyhorn. Have you ever caught a Rhyhorn there, Danny?
Actually, yes, I have. It was only in Pokemon Yellow, but still, it was pretty tough trying to catch that thing. But still, I was able to succeed in capturing it, and believe me, that Pokemon's got a lot of power. In a battle, it can really come through in a pinch. It really can.
The problem with it is that it's a rock type. Rhyhorns, yes. We've already talked about how bad rock types are. Rhyhorn is actually a dual ground rock type, which means it has very similar weaknesses, exactly the same weaknesses as Onix does. So, fighting, ground, steel, water, grass, and ice. Basically, any move that's really good, unless it's a fire move, will really hurt you.
Yeah, big time.
So, the design for Rhyhorn was actually inspired by an Indian rhinoceros. Did you know that?
No, I did not know that.
Yeah. And the usual Rhyhorn is about 3 feet 3 inches tall and weighs about 253.5 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah. And in Kalos, Rhyhorn they're known for actually racing. They actually race Rhyhorn in matches in Kalos.
Huh.
Yeah. In fact, your mother in the game is a famous Rhyhorn racer. And you actually have a pet Rhyhorn in your garden, and you actually can jump on them and ride them for a little bit. Isn't that cool?
Wow.
Yeah. There's even a part in X and Y where there's an actual route that you have to ride a Rhyhorn for a little bit. So that's pretty cool. I didn't really think Rhyhorn would run that fast, but apparently they do.
Yeah, I guess if you give them enough room to move and they pick up enough speed, then yeah, they're pretty much. You may as well just get out of the way, because unless you're a water type Pokemon or grass
or
type,
fighting or ice or ground.
Yeah, yeah. You're pretty much you're pretty much done. So,
well,
to say the least.
In the anime, Serena, who becomes a companion of Ash in X and Y, her mother is the Rhyhorn racer, and she actually learns how to Rhyhorn race and actually teaches Ash in one of the episodes how to Rhyhorn race. So that was pretty cool.
Huh.
So just a few things about Rhyhorn. All right, the next Pokemon that we're going to meet now. Usually it's only one Pokemon. This episode we actually have two Pokemon that we kind of spotlight. So the next Pokemon that we spotlight is Nidoking, or Nidoking, however you want to say it.
Yeah, I think it's Nidoking.
Nidoking?
Or at least that's what they pronounce it in the show.
That's fine. Nidoking. All right, so Nidoking. So Nidoking is a ground poison type. A usual Nidoking is about 4 feet 7 inches, and he weighs 136.7 pounds. That's a usual Nidoking. Nidokings are all male. Nidoqueens are all female. I can't believe, like, when I first saw Nidoking in the game, I thought he was a huge giant, but he's only 4 feet tall. What's up with that, man?
Wow.
Some of these Pokemon heights really depress me when I actually see them in real life. Like Charizard is only a usual Charizard is only 5 foot tall. Like it's about the size of a usual human being. So.
Whoa. Okay. So I guess Ash must be really short. But
no,
then again, he's only 10 years old.
He's only 10 years old, so that's fine. But that means I now, as an adult, could not ride a Charizard. That depresses me. This depresses me. Okay.
Oh man.
And also the fact that Nidoking is very short as well, and you actually see it in the episode. I was actually very, very like, oh, that's how tall he is?
Oh man.
Yeah.
And here I thought, and I don't know, maybe it's because when you compare Ash well, you know what? Not just Ash, but even Brock in comparison.
Right.
Even Brock, Charizard looks like Charizard looks like it's 7 foot.
Right. No, it's 5 foot tall. And actually, Ash's Charizard is a little shorter than some of the Charizard in the Char-Pacific Valley. But we're not talking about Charizard. Let's forget about Charizard. I'll talk about Charizard later because I love Charizard. But I'm going to talk about Nidoking. Or Nidoking.
Yeah.
However you say it. Yeah. So Nidoking is weak against ground, water, psychic, and ice types. So probably fares a little bit better than Rhyhorn.
Yeah.
Of course, to get a Nidoking, you have to evolve a Nidorino. Or Nidorino, or however you say it.
Yeah.
And you have to give it a Moonstone and it turns to Nidoking. So, this Pokemon shares traits with rhinos, gorillas, rabbits, and porcupines. That's a mix, right? Am I right?
Pretty much. Wow. I didn't really, wow.
Yep.
Think of that combination.
Yeah, I know, right? All right. So, now that we've got all the fun facts out of the way, we've talked a little bit about the Pokemon, let's get into this episode. And again, this episode is entitled...
In the Pink!
We start off the episode just like every single other episode that we started off here in the Orange Islands. And, of course, what is that, Danny? How do we start off every episode?
Yeah, we start out with our three heroes and of course our Pokemon riding along the seas of the Orange Islands on Lapras.
That's right. Now this time around, we find that Ash is kind of polishing the GS ball, because the GS ball's a thing. Yep. We find Tracy is playing peekaboo with Togepi. He's playing peekaboo with him, and then all of a sudden he kind of feels. It's kind of weird that all of a sudden it's very random. He just feels that, it's kind of weird that Togepi doesn't know any moves. He's a Pokemon. He should kind of know some moves, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Even though it's like up until this point, you don't really notice it.
Right.
Up until just about yesterday, or excuse me, not yesterday. Excuse me, in the previous episode.
Right.
But other than that, at no point do you actually think that Togepi has been learning anything. Of course, up until now, when Tracy makes note of that.
Mm-hmm. And it's really kind of random. He just spits this out, and then of course Misty's like, "Well, I've been trying to teach him how to do some moves." And we get a flashback of her trying to teach Togepi how to do a headbutt against a wood stake. She tries to teach him how to do it, and she hits her head on the stake and knocks herself out.
Ouch. Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty funny. It's kind of a funny little aside. So Ash then says to Misty, of course, Ash has always got to put that pot shot to Misty. Well, if Togepi had a better trainer, and of course Misty grabs his cheek and starts pulling. What was that? Nothing. So then of course, as this is all going on, the seas start getting a little rough. We get this shot of Lapras, and they find out that they are in a whirlpool, and Ash tells Lapras to try to get out of it, and he can't, and so they get sucked into this whirlpool. And then, of course, we go to the title screen, and of course, we wake up to Ash, who's laying on a beach. He opens his eyes, and the first people he calls for are Pikachu and Misty. He just calls for Pikachu and Misty. That's right. Yeah. So he calls for Pikachu and Misty, and they say, "Oh, are you okay?" And everyone's all right. Everyone's fine. They find out that somehow they have survived this whirlpool. We don't know how. We don't know why. They just did. They survived it. They're main characters. They can do that. They wake up on the island, and Tracy just kind of looks around and goes, "This kind of looks familiar to me. Whirlpools, seaside cliffs." Now, when I watched this for the first time, since I've watched it back when I was a kid, my first thought actually was the Whirlpool Islands from Johto. That's the first thing I thought of. I don't know if you remember in Gold and Silver, but to get to Lugia, you have to go to these Whirlpool Islands. You have to have the move Whirlpool, and you have to get to the island, and then you can get to Lugia.
You really did.
When I first saw this episode back when I first got the DVD set, I thought that they were going to introduce Lugia. I'm like, whoa, hold on. We're not at the movie yet.
No.
But
it's funny. When I saw it, I never really thought of it that way. Although, granted, when I got Silver later on, and I actually made my way around that island, I noticed that. I'm like, interesting. It's funny. I mean, I didn't really think much of it when I saw the episode way back when. But yeah, you would think though. You would think, oh wait a minute, did everybody just get sucked over to Johto? Did they just all of a sudden they just somehow end up over there? And it's like, okay, I mean, all we need now is just our little item to find Lugia, and that's it. But no.
No, they're still in the Orange Islands.
Yeah. Well, granted, in my case, I didn't progress far enough in Silver to learn Whirlpool, much less get the item that I needed to get Lugia over there.
That was the best part. That was the best part. All right. Well, anyways, so Tracy realizes that they are on an island called Pinken Island. Now, I'm not exactly sure of the meaning of this name. Again, we've been already talking about how all the Orange Islands have relations to oranges, right? Yeah. They all talk about oranges. I'm not exactly sure how Pinken, what Pinken is, or if that really relates to oranges. But if you've got the internet, you should probably look this up. But Pinken Island is what it's named. And he kind of says that no one's really ever explored Pinken Island because of the whirlpools they just survived. So Tracy gets all excited and he starts to climb the cliff, right? And
Yep.
so Tracy starts climbing, and Ash and Misty go after him. Now, how in the world? I'm sure that Misty probably put Togepi in her bag. So they're climbing this steep cliff with no climbing gear, and apparently no one has been to this island before. They easily get up that cliff, so how could no one have ever climbed those cliffs before? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, considering, that Tracy is a Pokemon watcher, I'm pretty sure he's probably had moments where he's had to basically maybe climb up a cliff or two.
I don't know, but he says that no one's has ever explored the island because of the whirlpools and the cliffs. But they get up that cliff quite easily. So why was that ever a problem for people? I don't get it.
Who knows?
I don't get it.
Maybe it's just, cartoon logic, I guess.
All right, let's just bring in Why Not.
Why not?
Yeah.
All right, so we brought in Why Not. All right, so they climb up the cliff, and as Ash and Misty are climbing up, Ash kind of calls out to Tracy and goes, "Hey, why'd you stop?" And Tracy hits Ash in the face with his foot. Ash is like, "Hey, what's that all about?" He goes, "Shush, shush, shush." And he's like, "What?" They look up, and there's a Rhyhorn, and he's eating from a tree. However, this Rhyhorn is different from a usual Rhyhorn because this Rhyhorn is pink, and not even as shiny as pink. So this is very rare. So they spot this pink Rhyhorn, and Tracy decides he wants to get a closer look. Now, being a very experienced Pokemon watcher, he knows exactly how to get close to an animal without angering it. Now, again, I always say that this is kind of very similar to, I would think, like wildlife photographers, like people like from National Geographic and stuff who go around and photo animals. They're not there to really study the animals, they just want pictures. A seasoned one would probably know how to get up to the animal close without the animal actually knowing that they are there. So this makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Good.
It really does.
All right, so Tracy decides to sketch it. He says that the horn on it, it says he's 8 meters long and 1 meter high. His horn is 20 centimeters long. I don't know how that converts. So if you're a smarter person than me and know how that converts, let me know at TailsFT Game Grid. So Misty then says, Ash is like, well, how can Tracy get that close without him knowing? And Misty goes, well, he knows a lot more than you do about getting close to animals, Ash. Well, Ash sees this more as a diss than an actual fact. Misty's just seeing it kind of matter-of-factly, but Ash is taking this as almost like you're disrespecting me. I know about Pokemon. I'm going to be a Pokemon master. Blah, 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 blah. So he gets up, goes to the Rhyhorn, starts talking to it, and gets the Rhyhorn all ticked off. And so the Rhyhorn starts chasing. Ash and Tracy start running away from the Rhyhorn. Misty is kind of like, no, go away, go somewhere else. And they're about to fall off the cliff, and they all stop. Just before the Rhyhorn hits them with his takedown, Togepi does metronome again, and they teleport back to the bush where they saw Rhyhorn before, and Rhyhorn falls over the cliff onto a branch. This is kind of a real-life situation. I really think that if you're going to go out in the wild and you're going to see animals in the wild, you need to have a guide with you. Because guides know more, especially ones that are local, know more about animals in your local area than you do. I would not approach an animal ever unless it was a dog or a cat. And even then, I wouldn't touch it unless I could ask the owner of the animal, is it okay if I touch this animal? Okay?
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, pretty much. You don't want to do something to startle it.
Right, and that's also why Tracy kind of scolds Ash and says, "Hey man, I know what I'm doing. I'm experienced at this. You're not. You shouldn't be spooking the Rhyhorn like this." So that's just another thing that I thought was kind of neat. Is this a real thing? Is staying downwind and breathing the same breath as the Pokemon a real thing? I don't know. I'm not an animal expert. I can't tell you. But it sounds real. It sounds like a thing.
Pretty much. I mean, given that Pokemon are, for lack of a better word, the only real wildlife that exists in this universe, it makes sense to. It's not too far fetched for Tracy to use, real life, or at least the closest thing to real life techniques that photographers and wildlife experts would use to be able to observe without being spotted or startling the animal.
Right.
So, I mean, of course, granted, I have to admit, the part about Tracy kind of like speaking about how you got to breathe like a Pokemon, at first that didn't really make much sense to me, but it does kind of make sense because you kind of do. I would imagine that wildlife experts, and again, they would know this better than me, but I would imagine that wildlife experts would probably try to match their breathing with the animals, so that way they don't basically pick up anything out of the ordinary. Because let's face it, animals have a good sense of hearing and smell, or at least certain animals have a good sense of hearing and smell than we ever could.
Right.
So I guess to try and just make it to where the animal feels as comfortable as possible without necessarily feeling like, without it getting a sense that, there may be a predator watching you, or at least that kind of thing.
Right. I agree. All right. So all of a sudden, out of nowhere, who shows up? Not Team Rocket yet, but Officer Jenny. Of course, every place they go, there's an Officer Jenny. So Officer Jenny shows up in a Jeep. So she's like, "Hey, what are you doing on this island? Why are you here? This is a Pokemon preserve. You can't be here." Ash and them say, "Well, sorry, we made a mistake. We're sorry about that. We just kind of came on this island by accident. We apologize. But there's something more important right now. This Rhyhorn is about to fall down onto the beach, and we need to save it." So Ash and them rappel down. Ash and Tracy rappel down the side of the cliff. They tie ropes around them and Rhyhorn, and Officer Jenny uses her Jeep to pull the Rhyhorn up. Now, is this possible? I don't know. Again,
Well,
cartoon logic.
I guess who knows? I mean, maybe, I guess if you have a strong enough rope, and if you're able to measure like the right amount of leverage and horsepower from the vehicle that they use to hoist the Rhyhorn up and everything else, I guess it's not too far-fetched. But even if it is far-fetched, it's probably one of those things that it's best not to think too much on. Because on the one hand, yeah, I mean, realistically, if that rope's not strong enough, and if you don't have the right weight ratio between the vehicle and the rope and the Rhyhorn, yeah, I guess the Rhyhorn could snap the rope and fall straight down to the ground. But again, like I said, it's probably one of those things that's best not to think too much on.
Yeah. And I also like the fact that one of the things I've always wondered is, why don't people, even like bad guys like poachers and stuff, why don't they use Pokeballs to catch Pokemon? Because if you see poachers or bad guys, or even Team Rocket, they don't really use Pokeballs to catch Pokemon. They either get them in nets or cages or something like that, right? So
yeah, pretty much.
So, but they actually address this because Ash asks Officer Jenny, "Why don't you catch him in a Pokeball?" And Officer Jenny says, "Well, he has to be weak, and that Rhyhorn is anything but weak." And I kind of think, at first I thought, is this a writer cop-out? It's just saying, well, we don't want to just throw the Pokeball because that would just make it easy. But I kind of feel that this is kind of a real thing. I think sometimes the cages and the nets are kind of a cop-out when it would just be easier to catch them in Pokeballs. But at the same time, I think that they have to differentiate people who steal Pokemon and people who catch Pokemon.
Yeah, I guess it would make sense to do that, especially since Team Rocket is pretty much known for being, a band of a band of basically Pokemon thieves, essentially.
Right.
And I guess they figure, the idea is, unless there's stuff they're looking for in Pokemon, and granted, there have been exceptions, after all, with Jesse getting Lickitung, James somehow getting his Weepin Bell, which, of course, as we all know, evolved into a Victory Bell. I don't know, I guess it's one of those things where if they genuinely or just, for the sake of whatever reason, they decide to just catch, the Pokemon, they'll use a Pokeball. But if they're just going to go ahead and just say, you know what, we're going to catch these Pokemon, but not in the sense of us catching them in Pokeballs. We're just going to basically catch them and take them against their will.
Right.
I guess when you look at it, the logic really doesn't hold up all that much. But again, like you said, it's one of those things where you have to differentiate the antagonist from the protagonist.
Right. Right. Well, I always see that the Pokeball is part you catching it and part the Pokemon. I think if the Pokemon respects you enough, it'll let the Pokeball catch it. But if it doesn't respect you, or if it's not weak enough, it can fight the Pokeball and pop out. For example, Meowth. Meowth, there are several times where people have tried to catch Meowth. But Meowth has always popped out of that Pokeball and, fought it. So, I also feel it's also the Pokemon's decision as well. Because they respect the Pokemon trainer and go, this guy's pretty strong. I think I can get stronger with him. I'm going to let him catch me. So, I think it's both the trainer and the Pokemon that you're trying to catch, their decision together. That's how I feel. So
yeah, that makes sense.
All right, we're getting a little in the weeds here, so let's move on. Speaking of despicable people who try to catch Pokemon without Pokeballs, we're introduced to Team Rocket next, and of course they're in their famous Magikarp sub. Who else, though, we find on top of that sub but Jigglypuff? Of course, she has to make an appearance. We don't know why. She has to be there. And Jigglypuff is kind of attached to the top of Team Rocket's kind of periscope. So, Jessie sees that Ash and Tracy are lifting up the pink Rhyhorn. She notices that the Rhyhorn is pink. She gets all excited. And of course, they all decide to steal the pink Rhyhorn. But before they can actually get onto the island, they get caught in the whirlpool. They spin around a whole lot. And then, of course, we smash cut back to Ash and company, who have saved the Rhyhorn, and the Rhyhorn kind of goes off into its thing. And then Ash kind of turns over to Officer Jenny and is like, hey, so why did that Rhyhorn not attack you when he saw you? Why did he only attack us? And Jenny was like, well, that's because he's used to me. He's not used to strangers. And then, of course, we get probably one of my favorite jokes. One of my favorite punny jokes in Pokemon. He goes, oh, well, I guess that makes him a shy horn. Ah! Ah! I really love that joke. I'm sorry. I know it's lame, but I love lame pun jokes. It's so funny.
Yeah, I mean,
so funny.
Yeah, it is pretty hilarious. I mean, granted, maybe because, again, like you said, it is lame, but again, it's very much Nash's character to say that.
Right. And of course, Misty's like, yeah, no. So, then of course, after the joke, Tracy calls Ash, and Ash looks over at Pikachu, and Pikachu's cheeks are pink, and his tail is pink. And Ash gets all, whoa, what's going on here? Jenny says, hey, your Pikachu is eating a pinkenberry. And pinkenberries only grow on this island. They have some kind of chemical in the fruit that if you eat it, the Pokemon turn pink. Which is why all the Pokemon on this island are pink, because they eat this pinken fruit. Now, I read something somewhere that there's a fan theory that the Butterfree, that Ash's Butterfree goes and woos and, gets with on Bye Bye Butterfree,
Yeah.
is pink. And there's a theory that this pink Butterfree came from this island.
Well,
it makes sense.
It wouldn't be too hard to imagine.
No.
I mean, after all, there hasn't been a reason why that Butterfree that Ash's Butterfree saw was. There had to be a reason why that one stood out from the rest.
Right.
So
So this is very similar to, in the real world, some animals actually change their color depending on what they eat. For example, flamingos, because they eat a lot of shrimp, their feathers turn pink. Now, the pinkenberries actually work a lot quicker than the shrimp does in real life, because it was pretty quick that Pikachu didn't even finish eating that pinkenberry and his cheeks were pink and his tail was pink. So there has to be a really strong chemical in this fruit.
Yeah, either that or maybe Pikachu's metabolism was just at another level to where, the chemicals just started coloring Pikachu's body pink a lot quicker, I guess. I don't know.
Right, and then of course...
Where's the Pokemon biologist when you need one?
Right, and then of course, Ash gets all worried about it, and Officer Jenny says, don't worry, it's going to go away eventually, because he has to continuously eat the pinkenberries for it to be permanent. So that's when Ash makes his second pun joke, which says, oh, well then, if you kept eating these berries, I guess I would have to call you Pink-a-Chew. Ha ha! Ha ha ha! Okay, moving on. So we smash cut to Team Rocket is lost up on shore, and of course, who else shows up? Jigglypuff shows up and tries to sing. Team Rocket gets excited that Jigglypuff is there, and there's a pink Jigglypuff in front of them. They're going to catch him, and then they all realize, oh wait, Jigglypuff is already pink. And then they realize that Jigglypuff is going to start singing, so they run away. Now, as they are running, they then go into a forest, and they start looking all around, and all the Pokemon all around are pink. There's pink Mankey, there's pink Weedle, there's pink Caterpie, there's pink... I think I saw a pink Executor in the background. So they get all excited about this, and Jessie wants to open a pink Pokemon theme park, which I think is probably our first Disneyland reference in Pokemon. What do you think?
That's definitely the first. I don't think I've heard anything like that before this episode.
It's obviously a reference to Disney, because you see in their dream, there's a theme park and there's a castle in the middle, and they have a huge musical number that they do.
Oh yeah.
Which is absolutely terrible. Absolutely.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because it turns out in their little dream,
right?
You got Pidgeotto, Rattata, Oddish, Venonat, Poliwhirl, Bellsprout, Geodude, Scyther, and Electabuzz.
Yeah, and you also have a pink Weezing and a pink Arbok as well.
Of course. Yep.
Yeah.
Because after all, hey, that's their Pokemon. So as far as Jessie and Suze are concerned, they're already pink by default. Even if only in their mind.
Right. So they decide to do this, and James calls his Victory Bell out, which of course the running gag about Victory Bell biting his head off. And so Jessie then pulls out Lickitung, and then of course James makes the comment, "Oh look, a pink Lickitung," and then Jessie smacks James, and it's like, "Lickitung's always pink." And then Meowth makes the comment, "If she keeps slapping you, you're gonna turn pink." Lickitung then goes after a Nidoran and a Nidoran boy and a Nidoran girl. Nidoran boys are always pink, but Nidoran girls are purple, but this Nidoran girl is pink. So they're both pink. Lickitung then scares the Nidoran, and they run into a cave, and Lickitung runs after them. 2 seconds later, Lickitung comes running out all worried Jesse and James are like, what's going on? Why did you run off? And then you hear this loud stomping, and then Nidoking, comes out and starts to attack them. And it's a pink Nidoking. Usually, Nidokings are purple-ish. Kind of like a purplish pink.
Yeah.
Which is weird because Nidoran is pink, Nidorino is pink, and then Nidoking is kind of like a purple, more of a purple. Nidoqueen is a bluish kind of color.
Yeah.
Anyways, so they get attacked by this pink Nidoking. So we go back to Ash and company, who are being scolded by Officer Jenny about being on this island. You can't be on this island. No one should know about this island. Even though they have a she points to a travel poster that says Pinkin Island and it has pink Pokemon on it.
Oh, man.
It's like, wait a minute. You have a poster. And you don't want anyone to know about this island. Yet you have a poster. What is this all about? Anyway.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Cartoon watching. You gotta love it.
Right. So, Pinkin Island, we find out, is an official Pokemon refuge. There's no visitors allowed. She says that because Ash and friends did not know that they weren't supposed to be on the island, she won't press charges. So, they're very grateful to Officer Jenny, and Misty makes the suggestion that they should call Professor Oak. So, they call Professor Oak, and Professor Oak already knows about the Pinkin Island. He tells them a little bit more about the island, about how this is a refuge, and how only like Pokemon nurses and doctors live on this island, and they help the Pokemon that are there. Very similar to some places in Africa. This is very similar to a lot of places in Africa that have like little sanctuaries for animals. They can still live in the wild, but they have doctors and whatnot going out there and seeing if these animals are okay and if they need any help or if they're sick or whatever. What have you. After the talk with Professor Oak, there's a large alarm that goes off. Officer Jenny says that there's somebody else that's on the island. Now, automatically, everyone goes, oh, it must be poachers then. Ah, poachers. You know, like, they don't even give a benefit of a doubt that there might be some people like Ash and company who just kind of got on the island by accident. No, automatically it's poachers, it's bad guys, so we gotta go stop them. I mean, honestly, they could have... Ash is probably already thinking, oh, Team Rocket's probably followed me here. I guess that could be logical, right?
No, that's pretty much spot on. I mean, granted, one would think, well, wait a minute. You know, let's just check it out and just to make sure that, you know, is it really, you know, poachers, or is it just, you know, folks who, like Ash, just ended up, you know, on the island, you know, against their will, you know? I mean, you know, so, I mean, but, again, given how many encounters Ash and his friends have had with Team Rocket over these many episodes, he's pretty, I mean, it really would, it's not hard for him to imagine that Team Rocket might be nearby or they might have something to do with, you know, with anything weird going on, or in this case, you know, the mysterious disturbance showing up, or whoever it was showing up on the island.
Right. So, they get in a Jeep with Jenny and they go off, and Team Rocket's we go back to Team Rocket, who's being chased by the Nidoking. James pulls out his Weezing, he does a smoke screen to stop him, and Jesse pulls out Arbok to kind of wrap around Nidoking to keep him still. Then Lickitung uses his Lick Attack to smack around Nidoking and paralyzes him. Because, again, if you're not familiar with the game, the move Lick has a chance of paralyzing the Pokemon. Then Jenny and everyone finds Team Rocket, and of course we have the motto. But I do want to go over the motto here a little bit because this is different than most other times we get the motto. Because the whole time Team Rocket is doing the motto, James is in a pink Gengar costume, and Jesse is in a pink Tauros costume. Why? Because before they weren't in this costume, and then after they do the motto, they're not in the costume. Where do these costumes come from?
It's, I guess it's just one of those mysteries that probably will never be solved. Because, or to quote what Meowth said in a previous episode, or I don't know if it was Meowth or Jesse, it probably was one of those. It was one of those two. But as one of them said, the writers can't even figure that out.
That's true.
They
True.
just put it there.
Yeah. Sometimes I'm sure just sometimes as a writer, some of those things just came on. They're like, what the heck? You know what? Never mind. Let's just go. Just go. So, after Team Rocket's motto and the funny costumes, Meowth taunts Ash and says, well, you're not gonna stop us this time, twerp. Ash is like, all right, well then I will stop you. And so he tells Pikachu to do a Thunder Shock. Now, Pikachu's Thunder Shock hits Jesse, James, Lickitung, Arbok, Weezing, but not Nidoking. And he shocks them, and they all fall on Nidoking. Now, I read on one of the posts that Nidoking also gets shocked, but you can clearly see it in the episode he does not get shocked. And even if he did, he's a ground type, and electric type attacks won't work on him.
Pretty much. I
Right.
mean, again, you could use any kind of electric attack you can to throw it at a Nidoking or any kind of ground Pokemon. And, yeah, electric attacks have no effect on Nidoking at all. I mean, you can throw any kind of electrical attack at him, and just nothing is going to happen. And that goes for pretty much every kind of ground Pokemon out there.
Right. Well, the person that I read online thought that the electric attack was what woke Nidoking up from his being paralyzed. But I actually think it's because Arbok, Weezing, Lickitung, Meowth all landed on top of him, actually. Because afterwards, Nidoking throws the Pokemon back at Jesse and James, hitting them.
Yeah, it did. So probably maybe just feeling the electrical attack, obviously not being hurt by it, but
Right.
I guess just feeling it probably was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Okay, well, wait now. I guess it just kind of like got rid of the paralysis, or kind of just, I guess it's kind of like the equivalent of, you know how like in some cartoons where one character gets whacked upside the head with either, a mallet or, or anything really, and all of a sudden they go, okay, whoa, what happened here?
Right.
So I guess they went with that kind of.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, so then Nidoking hits Team Rockets with his tail, and they fly off and blast off again. We don't see them again for the rest of the episode. Hooray! So,
That was quick.
but Nidoking is still angry and charges after Officer Jenny, who's in the Jeep with Ash, Misty, Tracy, Pikachu, Togepi. They do kind of almost like a Jurassic Park scene where they're being chased by this Jeep. They're in this Jeep and they're being chased by the Nidoking, although the Nidoking is way shorter than a T-Rex.
Yeah, but still, when you see a Nidoking coming at you, full tilt, you are not going to basically be calm. You're just going to just get in the Jeep and just throw the gears into overdrive and just leave the speedometer, just bleed it out, because
Dude, if I would have made this episode today, I would have totally made a Jurassic Park reference. I probably would have made Ash or Tracy or Misty go, must go faster.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, yeah. In fact,
Totally would have made that reference.
Ash behind the wheel and Misty saying that, Ash, go faster. And Ash going, I'm trying, please.
All right, so to stop Nidoking, Misty tries to pull out her Starmie, but instead of pulling out her Starmie, guess who pops out? Psyduck.
Duck.
Right, who then gets spooked away, starts running as fast as the Jeep somehow. And then Tracy then decides to use his Meryl, where he thought, oh, Meryl's going to fight this thing. And then Meryl gets scared and somehow jumps back into the Jeep, which is going super fast. So somehow Meryl jumps right back into the Jeep, though.
Yep.
Then Ash tells Pikachu to attack using his electric attacks, but of course, because we know that Nidoking is a ground type, it doesn't work. but they play it off as because he's so angry the electric attacks don't work. But we know he's ground type, it's not going to work. So as they're doing this, Jenny then notices that they're at a cliff, a large mountainous cliff. So they stop. Jenny is about to tell them something, and they notice that Nidoking's horn starts glowing, which means he's going to do a hyper beam. Which, at that point in the history of Pokemon, hyper beam was like the move that you're just like, oh crap, hyper beam. Nowadays, it's not so much a problem, but back in them olden days, hyper beam was like, the move, man.
It really was.
Yeah, so even in the anime when you saw it, you're like, oh crap, hyper beam. So he does hyper beam, and then Togepi again does metronome, but this time Misty notices that Togepi has done this. She sees Togepi move his arms start glowing, and then a shield goes over the truck, negating the hyper beam, which technically is the move protect, which actually doesn't technically exist yet.
No, but I guess I had to come up with something.
Well, technically, Togepi is a newish Pokemon, so I guess it could kind of work in a way. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, true. And in the context of, when the episode came out, it pretty much makes sense for Togepi to do something a little unexpected.
Jenny tells everyone to get out of the car. They get out of the car. Nidoking's still charging towards them. Jenny somehow gets the car out of the way of Rhyhorn as he's rushing, or Nidoking as he's rushing the Jeep. And as she does, she somehow brings a rope and ties Nidoking. Now, the animation looks like Nidoking's about to pull the Jeep toward him, but then Jenny starts going around Nidoking, wrapping him around and making him dizzy, and he falls over. And he's all dizzy and falls down, and then, of course, they're all impressed because Jenny took care of the Nidoking. So, no problems there. So then, Ash and company are escorted by Jenny past the whirlpools, because obviously she probably knows a safer way past them. Then Misty tries to kind of see if she can recreate Togepi doing metronome, but it doesn't work. Ash then grabs Tracy's sketchbook and looks in it and sees it's a picture of Jenny with the rope. I love Tracy's comment. He says, well, a guy can't look at Pokemon, just Pokemon. And they start laughing, and kind of, that's how the episode ends. Basically. Right?
Yep. Pretty
and
much.
That's it. So, let's go into our pros and cons for this episode. So, let's start with you, Danny, the ultrasonic player.
Yep.
What are your pros for this episode?
For my pros, I just see it as a really good, fun episode.
Right.
Obviously, I guess it might be easy for some to actually go ahead and write it off as, it's just a filler episode because he's not, on another island trying to get another badge. But you know what? Sometimes you gotta, just step away from the beaten path every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, again, and the fact that they're on an island that at this time is not, it's got something different about it, which I like. That's what I liked about all the Orange Islands episodes. There's always every island they go to, there's always something different to check out or something to see. And in this case, granted, it's nothing too big, in terms of scope, but it's just a fun little episode where, you run into some Pokemon that don't seem to be like your typical run-of-the-mill because of a certain fruit that you're eating. But of course, you find out that, they really are just your regular Pokemon. They just look different because the Pinkenberries are their main source of food. And of course, if they don't eat those as much, or if they don't eat them at all, then they go back to their regular color. So, and of course, running into Officer Jenny, always one of the best supporting characters out there, and just kind of like showing them a little bit, about what the island is like. And even before all that, Tracy you really get a chance to see, Tracy and what he does as a Pokemon watcher. Because up until this point, you really aside from him doing his sketching, you don't really see too much of what a Pokemon watcher does. And with this episode, you actually get a chance to see him do just that. And he actually, in a way, he's kind of showing us, the audience, the tricks of the trade and what a Pokemon watcher does, how they observe, and what they're supposed to do, and in the case of Ash, what not to do when it comes to observing Pokemon.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you think that this episode may have given the creators of the video game the idea for shiny Pokemon?
I wouldn't be surprised if there was some inspiration. But then again, on the other hand, I wouldn't be surprised if the developers already had some ideas kicked around, but they just, it was just, on drawing paper and never really done in the games. I mean, it wouldn't be hard to imagine.
Because this is not the first time we see different colored Pokemon. Because if you remember way back in episode 3, we found out that the Orange Island, that there's all kinds of all Pokemon on the Orange Islands tend to have different colorations than Pokemon on the mainland. So,
yeah, that's right.
So, do you think that this was maybe their way of kind of throwing this idea out and seeing if people liked it?
Probably. In fact, now that I think about it, yeah, and looking at that episode and this one, yeah, it would make more sense if this was probably the developers. Who knows? I mean, maybe the developers probably got a hold of whoever was doing the show at the time and said, hey, look, we got these ideas. You can throw it out there. And I guess, I mean, of course, who knows what really happened, but either way, whether it be from the developers or the animators, I mean, obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if this is where we start to see, the seeds of what we ended up seeing in the later games with, different colored Pokemon.
Right.
So it's kind of an either or.
Okay.
Or maybe both.
Okay. My pro I didn't really have a lot of pros for this episode. Not that I didn't like the episode. I just feel, I feel that some of the real world science, and again, because we're doing a podcast, you can't see it, but I'm doing air quotes, real world science that they used with these animals, these Pokemon, is kind of neat because it makes it feel a little bit more realistic. And that's what I like about this anime as opposed to the video game, because that's something that, as of right now, the video game doesn't really do very much. You don't really get to see the animals alive and breathing, right?
True.
I really believe that what this anime does, and does good, is that they actually show these animals, these Pokemon, really living and breathing in this world. And that's why I really like this show, and really like seeing these Pokemon in the real world. Seeing them as actual animals as opposed to just pictures on your screen. So I kind of like that. And that's why I kind of like this episode, because it kind of brings a little bit of the real world into Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's good about the show, is that it's not just the video game come to life, to where it's not just that, to where you throw your Pokeball out and your Pokemon comes out and boom, there you go. They're able to flesh the characters out in a way to where you can't really do it in the video game. Now, on the one hand, you probably could, but I think if the player was to spend too much time having to pretty much do what Tracy does, then all of a sudden it would kind of take some of the experience out of it. Mm-hmm. And because really I feel that the players, when they play the games, what they want to do is just go out there, encounter Pokemon, catch them, fight them, and level them up and try to get as many badges as you can.
Right.
Whereas with the show, it's more there's more to it than that.
Right.
Which you could get away with in that show. You could do it.
Right.
But in the games, you just can't.
Right. Another thing I liked about this episode was all of Ash's puns.
Oh yeah, you gotta love those.
I love it. I'm sorry, I can't lie. I love lame punny jokes. And that's pretty much all I have for pros. I really can't think of anything else I really liked about this episode. My really major con, and I kind of disagree with you when you said that this is not a throwaway episode. I really think it is. Is it a bad throwaway episode? No. But do I need to watch this to understand what's going to happen next in the storyline? No, not really. One of the things that I really like, especially about nowadays, is building up for a story arc. It's okay to have a random episode to kind of bridge the gap between one thing to another, but I
Yeah.
really think that this episode, a lot of episodes in Pokemon are like this episode where you really don't have to watch it, and sometimes it's actually kind of bores you when you kind of marathon this show because you're like,
Yeah.
okay, let's move on, let's keep going. That's why I really liked Black and White, because the pace of the episode and the pace of the story arcs that they had was very very quick. And yes, they had these random throwaway episodes, but they either threw something in the background that kind of made you want to continue to watch it, or they would put something in there to tide you over till something else happened.
Yeah.
Sometimes what I liked, especially in Black and White, is they would throw like special, like almost like Marvel secret endings at the end of each episode to kind of drive the story. Especially since a lot of times Team Rocket didn't show up, they would use just a little bit of time to show you where Team Rocket is at that point.
Yeah.
So I really don't like this episode as the fact that this is a throwaway episode. Yes, I know that they showed Togepi doing Metronome again. Is it really important? No, not really. Is it really important that Togepi knows a move? No, because this doesn't ever pay off, ever. It just, every once in a while, they use it as a way to get Ashen people out of danger.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not very important to the story that I'm trying to be invested in. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I do.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I don't hate this episode. I don't at all. It's just I feel that this is another one of those throwaway episodes where I really kind of wish that they would have gone on with the story arc that they're going through, as opposed to just, hey, look at this. Yeah, I do agree that you do get to see Tracy in a different light, and Tracy again is not my favorite companion. He's just such a wooden character. But you get to see him in action a little bit, and you get to see what a Pokemon watcher is, and that's kind of interesting. But it's not interesting enough to keep me interested in the story that I'm watching. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Okay. So that's pretty much this episode. Anything else you want to throw out there?
Nope, not at all.
Great. Great.
That's pretty much it on my end.
Okay. Great. Awesome. So, before we end the show, I want to again thank you, Danny the Ultrasonic Player, for joining me on this podcast, which is the longest Pokemon podcast.
Seriously, whoa. I mean, like you, I definitely like to try and keep these episodes as short as possible. But, but sometimes when you have a lot to talk about, a certain episode,
right.
It just, it happens.
Well,
I've heard it.
We're pushing an hour right now.
I mean, I've heard it all on other podcasts where even the commentators themselves, they talk about how, we wanted it to be just this long, but it turned out to be this long.
Right.
Yeah, it happens to the best of us.
Right. So don't worry about it. I'm sorry if this is a little longer than normal, but I think our discussion was pretty intriguing. I hope the listeners think that too. So
it was.
Go ahead.
And again, I just love talking about these episodes, and hey, it gives me a reason to go back and watch them again, and just really just look forward to the next episodes. And
great.
Even for the throwaway episodes or filler episodes, it definitely still has that magic. And I don't know how to explain it. Maybe we'll talk about that in a special episode. I don't know.
There you go.
To where just there's something about these episodes that somehow just it touches the kid in you.
All right.
It touches the kid in you, and you just want to sit down and get some chips, or maybe a sandwich, pick a snack.
Get some cereal with some milk.
Sit down and watch.
Get some cereal with some milk, and
Yep, exactly. Yep, exactly. Pick your meal and just sit back and watch the show.
Right. So, before we end the show, really quickly, want to go over our housekeeping. So, You are listening to this on either iTunes, YouTube, or our website, thearcadearchives.com. Again, thearcadearchives.com. That's where you can find all kinds of great articles by the man right here, Danny the Ultrasonic Player, and myself. Also, Raygun, who is in charge of this whole crazy house. So please make sure you go on thearcadearchives.com. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please make sure you review our podcast. We don't care how many stars you give us, just review the podcast, let us know what you think. If you're listening to this on either iTunes or the website, thearcadearchives.com, once again, please make sure you comment below. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you think of this episode and what are your opinions of this episode, okay? Also remember that I have a monthly webcomic called Tales from the Game Grid, and that's on thearcadearchives.com as well. Every month we do a monthly webcomic very similar to the Sunday Funnies, and you can find that on thearcadearchives.com. We just hit our 25th issue this month, and I'm very, very happy about that. We have hit our second year of doing this, so I'm very, very happy. I get to Nido to do this. It's a labor of love for me. So, yeah. And don't forget, folks, I have totally lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. You can also follow us on Twitter at TailsFTGameGrid or at Arcade A Network. That's at TailsFTGameGrid or at Arcade A Network. Danny the Ultrasonic Player, what do you got for me?
Okay, well, as always, in addition to the articles, I also write fan fiction on the side, and I actually am just about finishing up with one little, fan fiction one-shot, so I just have to get it uploaded, and that'll be that. And just stay tuned for more stories, and specifically more updates to the stories that I'm still working on. But they'll be there. And yeah, of course, just stay tuned on the Arcade Archive because we have got a lot of things coming down the pike.
Right. So I want to again thank my two guest stars this month for PokePals Month. I really had a great time with you, Danny the Ultrasonic Player, and also Sayako. Thank you so much, Sayako, for joining me earlier this month. She's going to be back next month for another episode, so I'm very excited about that. But thank you, Danny the Ultrasonic Player, for joining me for the last 3 episodes. So
yeah,
I think PokePals Month was really exciting, and I really can't wait for next month. And we're not going to announce anything just yet, but stay tuned.
Big time. And again, a pleasure to always be here, and I'm more than happy to come back, to these things because it's fun doing them, and going back and just having fun, doing these things, and hopefully, everybody out there, loves them as much as we like making them.
Great. And one more thing before we go, we also have another mini cast, although this is a pretty long cast. So we also have another mini cast called Ruby Roundup. Make sure you listen to that, folks. So if you're a big fan of Rooster Teeth's Ruby, check that out. New episodes will be coming up soon. I'm very excited because we're getting close to the end of the season, and I'm very, very excited to see what's about to happen in the world of Ruby. So check that out. Now, on the next episode of Pokemon Rewind, we are going over an episode called Shell Shocked. In this episode, Ash and company find an island where a lot of archaeologists are looking for Kabuto fossils. However, some mysterious things start happening on the island that cause some of the archaeologists to almost get hurt. What's going on? Why is this all happening? Well, you're going to have to find out. So thank you again so much for joining us here for Pokemon Rewind. Thank you again, Danny the Ultrasonic Player, for joining us.
Hey, no problem, man. Glad to be here, and just and to everyone out there, keep playing with power because there are no limits.
That's right. And we leave you with a clip from Shell Shocked. Best wishes, everyone.
Now let's get an up-close and personal perspective on this investigation from the director of the archaeological team. Can we speak to you?
Sure.
Nurse Joy?
Pika? One of the main reasons we've come here is to learn everything we can about the habitat of the extinct Pokemon, Kabuto. We'd also like to find out if there's any truth to the claims about Kabuto oil.
Please, tell us just what these startling claims are.
Well, legend has it that the oil from Kabuto shells not only brings good health, but it can make people live forever.
Live forever?
Pika pika!
Of course, we know that's impossible, but there could be some basis to the legend, and Kabuto oil may prove to be of great historic importance to medical science.
Fascinating.
Nurse Joy!
Huh?
We want to volunteer to help you with the excavation!
I'm an experienced Pokemon watcher, and we can help you record what you find. Please, just give us all a chance.
Oh, well,
And don't worry, Professor Oak, I'll do my best to bring back one of those Kabuto fossils! Hey, Mom, it's me, Ash!
Hey, Professor Oak, remember me? I'm Tracy.
Cut! Get your faces out of that camera!
What do you think you're doing? You're embarrassing all of us, Ash! You're making us look stupid! Stop it!
Thank you for joining us for this Arcade Archives Network video. If you like this, please make sure to subscribe to this channel and leave comments below. If you would like more, please go to thearcadearchives.com or zowie.kerpowie.com. Thank you so much once again for joining us for this Arcade Archives Network video, and don't forget to keep playing like it's 1981.
Message from headquarters. This is a Rebellion production and is part of the Arcade Archives Network. That is all.